And we're talking about the coronavirus. This seemed to have taken every industry by storm.
So it's scary. People are scared. Everybody wants to know, is every cough or sniffle or sneeze a coronavirus? And I can't tell you as a doctor. We don't have enough tests. The state is restricting who can get testing, and so you pretty much got to be a celebrity or on your deathbed.
We're also getting CDC and government advice to not even really to travel at all at this point. And certainly it has impacted the world of Hollywood, film, television.
I mean, there are so many movies that were all set to open up, this spring. It is a scary thing where a lot of folks are holding back on the release dates of their movies.
As a country, we are a resilient country. We are a resilient people. But we're going to have to think differently. Our lifestyles will not be the same. The way that we do business will not be the same.
And now we're joined with Dr. Victoria Dooley, family medicine physician, founder and president and CEO of the Lee Group, Mark S. Lee, movie critic and celebrity interviewer Greg Russell. And we're talking about the coronavirus. This seemed to have taken every industry by storm. Where do you see the landscape and where we are right now in this pandemic? It almost seems as if it's unprecedented.
It absolutely is. In my career, I'm a relatively young physician, but I've never seen anything quite like this.
Mark, thanks so much for joining me here. It seems as if we're living through unprecedented times, and this is an interesting way we're going about this interview. We're talking to each other through Skype because we are trying to practice the mandate or the advisory of social distancing during this time. Mark, thanks for joining me here.
Andrew, I appreciate the opportunity of joining you. And yes, you are absolutely correct. In this new era, this new norm of social distancing, this is how we have to communicate nowadays.
So let's talk about the impact of the coronavirus when it comes to business and how ultimately it's impacting our economy. Who do you think fares the worst in this situation? The industries that fare on the hardest impact?
Yeah, I think there are two areas that are really getting impacted significantly. One, quite frankly, is the small business industry. A lot of those individuals are not financially prepared for a downturn such as this, and they're really they're getting hit hard on the chin right now. In fact, some are closing very rapidly. They cannot afford to stay open, and we're seeing that on a daily basis right now. I think the other area where the other industries that are getting hit, also the restaurant, any service industry is getting hit significantly. So whether or not you work in the service industry or another service industry, such as the restaurant industry as I referenced, again, those individuals are not making it. I mean, people are used to going to restaurants. They're used to having a social time, having a wonderful time interacting with each other. And simply by going through delivery and carry out, that business model is a tough business model to sustain itself. So I think between entrepreneurs, i.e. the small business industry, and really the restaurant industry, those two are really taking a significant hit. And also though, Andre, I just say that all industries across the board are feeling the pinch as well.
So it's scary. People are scared, rightfully so. Everybody wants to know, is every cough or sniffle or sneeze a coronavirus? And I can't tell you as a doctor. We don't have enough tests. The state is restricting who can get testing, and so you pretty much got to be a celebrity or on your deathbed to get a test nowadays. So people want answers, and they deserve those answers. But even with a test is not going to get you any closer to a cure. There's no specific treatment for it. So people want tests, and they deserve tests. And it helps us to know more about the prevalence of the illness and about the survival of the illness. But ultimately, getting a test is not going to change your prognosis or survival.
Yeah. This coronavirus pandemic has really impacted almost every industry, and certainly it has impacted the world of Hollywood, film, television. We're seeing movies like the James Bond movie, No Time to Die, that has had an April release date, now been pushed to November. What is it that you're hearing, experiencing from, movie sets to the world of Hollywood in general about how this is impacting the bottom line of many movie sets across the country?
Well, like with what you said, I mean, there were so many movies that were all set to open up, this spring. They spent a lot of money for production. I mean, you got to figure the James Bond movie is a multi-million-dollar production. And if it had opened up when it was supposed to, no one could have seen it in the theaters. So, yeah, it is a scary thing where a lot of folks are holding back on the release dates of their movies, or what's beginning to happen now. I know Universal Studios announced earlier this week, they're going to start releasing their things on streaming, different platforms, like in their case, Xfinity, Amazon, and all like that, where they'll charge you, there'll be like a $20 charge. That's what, like The Invisible Man, which just came out within the past month, that's what they're charging for that. And it's so funny, a friend of mine mentioned to me the other day, they're going, wow, $20, isn't that a lot? And it's like, well, think about it. If you go to the movie, usually you don't go alone. Yeah. So if you take a date or go with someone, that's $20 right there just to get in the door. And then another, $20 to get snacks. So to an extent, you're saving money. But it's kind of weird just thinking, okay, when all this stuff is over, what's Hollywood going to do? Are they going to stick, a lot with the streaming thing? Or hopefully, everything goes back to the movie theater, because there's nothing like an experience inside a movie theater seeing a movie.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of those other industries, like the airline industry. There have been travel bans to fly, on international travel that has been impacted. But we're also getting CDC and government advice to not even really to travel at all at this point. And it has really, really impacted the airline industry, where we're seeing prices on airfare that have dropped tremendously. I was taking a look at one price point, $37 from, for example, Detroit to Miami. Where is the supply and demand ratio here? Because for a much younger audience or much younger demographic, they want to take these lower price points head on, and for others, this is really not working out so well.
It's not a good time to fly right now. If you got a $10 fare round trip, I would encourage people, quite frankly, not to fly. We're seeing the major industries. We're seeing the Deltas and the Uniteds of the world. They're dropping their, to answer your question, they're dropping their supply, the number of aircrafts by 60 to 70%. By 60 to 70%. And when you think about the industry for a second, you're flying on an airplane. You travel a lot. I travel a lot. You are in a very self-contained space. And while the cleaners are cleaning the aisles and the seats, they don't clean behind the seat backs in front of you like they used to. Or they never have. Let me rephrase that. They never have. So the germs are actually self-contained on the airplane as well. Even when the plane is clean, those germs are still there. So one of the challenges that the airline industry is having right now, quite candidly, is that there's just not enough demand. And I know I've heard this whole conversation about young people wanting to travel. They're going down to Florida for spring break and things like that because they've spent their money and they want to have a good time. Listen to me very carefully. Don't do that. That is not a good time. The industry is going to go through a shakeout. It's going to go through what the automotive industry went through 12 years ago. When Detroit, for example, asked for a bailout, right? The industry is already reaching back to the federal government and asking for some type of financial assistance. So right now, you can get those great deals. You can get those great fares. What you got to ask yourself, though, is it worth the risk to get on a plane for $37 to go to Miami from Detroit and then potentially get sick, get infected, and somewhere down the road possibly lose your life? Is it worth it?
Yeah. And then the other, to add to that, is when you travel, well, where are you traveling to when everything else is shut down?
Yeah. I mean, there's a ripple effect.
And as a family medicine physician, what are your patients? Certainly they have concern, but what are you seeing as the most asked about questions related to this virus? Because I know hospitals, we don't want to see that many people fill their ERs, especially healthy people who may not be experiencing any symptoms. So giving a phone call or speaking with your primary health physician is the direction that seems to be the most advised.
Absolutely, you should speak to your primary care physician, but unfortunately everybody doesn't have a primary care physician. But if you do have one, speak to them. You don't want to go to the ER if you're not sick, because if your symptoms are not coronavirus, you could be sitting next to somebody in the ER who does have coronavirus. So it's not worth the risk, and that is why some health systems are setting up drive-through locations, which is very beneficial. You don't have to get out of your car. And people they're wondering, you know, they get up and maybe their throat's a little bit sore, and they're wondering, you know, is this a coronavirus? How can I get tested? And right now I don't have a way to mass test people. So people are scared. It's spring and we have allergies, and every sniffle and sneeze, there's scared, rightfully so, and people want to stay at home. I have a lot of patients whose employers have allowed them to work at home, and then I have some patients who I guess they could work at home, but their employer's saying that they need a note, and I'm like, with this pandemic that's going on, if there's any way possible your employees could work at home, I don't see why as an employer you're requesting a note from the doctor. We are telling people to stay at home, to flatten the curve. And then you think about things, how we just failed as a society, right? Because we don't have universal paid leave. So there are so many people who want to stay at home and they don't want to put other people's lives at risk. But if they stay at home, then they're not going to have any money and they're not going to be able to eat and they're going to be facing homelessness. So it just underscores the fact that how we have failed as a society to prepare for this pandemic in so many ways.
Some of these movies that have been delayed on having a release date, they were going to go into the movies, but in some ways they were going to be released, and I think you just touched on it, it's about the platform in which they are released, because, you know, we watch TV shows, movie shows all the time, and a lot of people have gone from the movie theater to streaming services, television shows, to traditional television, to, you know, watching it on a different screen now that's on their phones. You know, so like you said, are we already starting to move in that direction anyhow? And is that a net positive or net loss for production crews who, you know, work behind the scenes on these films?
Well, it's one of those things. I was talking with a friend the other day about how younger people, I'm talking about, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, they are so used to watching stuff now here. Yeah. Where to them, it's kind of like, doesn't bother me. I can go to a theater, I can watch it right there. But I do see streaming becoming more and more popular. I mean, I can't think of a person in the world who doesn't have Netflix. I mean, you just mentioned that name, everybody's like, oh, you know, we've got it. We watch it, we stream it, we see their new movies. And also they've started, as you know, over the past few years, getting big celebrities, big stars to be in their productions. So I want to see like this new movie with Octavia Spencer, where she portrays Madam C.J. Walker. It's right there on Netflix. I don't even have to leave the room. But I still believe that there is just such a great experience of going into a movie theater. I couldn't imagine just watching Star Wars on my television, no matter if I've got a 60, 70, 80, 90-inch TV screen. There's nothing like sitting in the theater, seeing that, hearing the sound, you know, just surrounding you all the way. And it's just the best thing. And then also think about it, usually everybody's first date in life was either to the school dance or to a movie. It's still the best way to go out and be social.
How does this impact the tourist industry, if you will? You know, areas that rely on tourist travel. You know, certainly, like you said, there is a ripple effect in this as well.
There is a ripple effect. So you get down there, you may not have people there to service you. Yeah. You know, I mean, if you think about it, Florida, for example, that's a significant part of their industry is the tourism industry. And I just read reports recently where some of the beaches have closed, but a couple, get this, have decided to remain open through this weekend, despite the news, because they want to get the economic dollar. But the issue is, in terms of the ripple effect, you have so many jobs in that service industry based on tourism. Those jobs are going to be gone. So let's just say you got down there next week, in the next couple of weeks. Your point, what are you getting down there to do? You're not going to have anyone service you. You can't go anywhere. The hotels may or may not be open. Restaurants probably won't be open. So you might as well just stay at home and you might as well stay here and be self-contained at home, because you're going to fly to Florida and have a good time, or so you think, but you're not going to have a good time. A lot of those people are going to be affected financially. They're going to lose their jobs. They're going to be, they're going to, the fund, quite frankly, is just not going to be there. So again, it's really not working. So it really is a ripple effect all the way around.
Talk about flattening the curve and the advisement of staying home, social distancing. Are those the typical type of advisory precautions that we should take when it comes to infectious disease in general?
Absolutely. So you can think of the coronavirus as like a fire. We have to extinguish the fire, right? We are at war with this virus. So if a fire starts in your kitchen and you don't put it out, eventually it's going to burn the whole house down. So we are at war with this virus, and in this war, all we need to do is stay away from each other so that we don't keep passing the virus onto each other, and then people who are most vulnerable, or even people who are young and healthy, don't die, because people who are young and otherwise healthy can die from the virus. You might not be as likely to die as somebody who's older and sicker, but it's still a possibility that you can die. So all we have to do as part of this war is to stay the blank home. That's all you have to do. And think about it, if there's any war you want to be in, I'd rather be in a war where I can sit at home and be on social media and watch TV as opposed to a war where I'm like, carrying some guns and having to shoot somebody. So
we're living in this new reality of social distancing. And how is this really creating an impact, if you will, on the movie-going experience at the theaters? Because we have national chains like AMC and Regal that have shut down. So, when these movies are deciding to go straight to digital, could this be a long-term impact on the movie industry?
I think it all deals with, the person or the people. Because, I've even heard that some of the movie theaters that are still open, I mean, maybe just a handful really in the country, they have it now where you have to buy a seat with a gap, in between. And it's like, again, if I'm going on a date, I don't want my date, 3 seats over or, anything like that. But yeah, it is one of those things where it'll get into the minds of people for a while about, I just can't be close to anybody. I can't be close to you at a movie theater. I can't be close to you at a supermarket. I can't be close to you, at church or wherever else, you usually have large gatherings. And, it's going to take a time, I'm quite sure, for people to get over this fear of being close to people. But, again, we're human beings. We're supposed to intermingle.
Now, I wonder, does this open up the door for the, going back to the car movie going experience, watching the movie from your car on a big screen outside, are we going to go back to those times?
Well, ironically, they were talking about that the other day, how, like here locally in the Detroit area, we've got one drive-in theater. And again, like when I was growing up, we had them all over the place. But people were saying that might now have a big comeback. Because, right, you'll be in your car, you'll have your social distancing, but you can still see the movie on the big screen. And, actually, I would love to see more drive-in theaters, because those were a lot of fun. I can see right now, me and my wife, we can take our grandkids, put them in the car, they can, do whatever they want to do and enjoy the movie. And it was just such a fun experience as well.
And we talked about tourists and travel, and we got different event venues, concerts that have been canceled, and so it really is a ripple effect. Let's also talk about industries where or other sectors of our economy that are seeing some benefit. So grocery stores, for people who are running there for food and other supplies. I think there are some of these grocery store companies or food chains that are enjoying this time, do you think? Because people are rushing into these stores left and right to gather all the essential things they need.
Yeah, I don't know if I hear what you're saying. I don't know if they're, quote, enjoying this time. This is a very dangerous time. I know what you're saying. but they are reaping the benefits.
There's a dollar value on the demand for people who are coming there to shop for their goods.
That's exactly right. So I think they're benefiting from people having to shop.
Yeah.
If you're a consumer right now, we're all consumers, we're benefiting as well. People are saying, well, Mark, what do you mean by that? You're going to benefit from going to a gas station. Gas prices are now under $2. Unfortunately, nobody's driving anywhere, but the price per gallon has dropped significantly. If you're a grocery store, from a business standpoint, you're going to benefit from this increase in traffic. If you are a convenience store, such as a CVS or a Walgreens or something along those lines, you're going to benefit as well. So people in that, again, in that type of industry, the convenience stores and stores like that, they're going to benefit short term and probably long term. But again, you look at the industry overall. There's a number that I heard. I think the GDP, this is going to take $140 billion. Think about that for a second. $140 billion out of the U.S. economy's GDP, your gross domestic product. So while sectors of the population or sectors of the industry will benefit from this, it just shows you the overall financial impact. Those gains are not going to offset the overall losses in our U.S. economy at all.
But it's a war you can't see. And certainly it's a war that we want to win.
Yes.
But how do we win also when there's no vaccine to treat it?
That's a conundrum. Hopefully we'll have a vaccine sooner than later. They say 12 to 18 months. I personally don't know if there's any way to fast track that, but we have to stay at home. And then we have to have rules enacted in society so that we can do that. We need to freeze rent and mortgage payments. We need to cancel all student loan debt, in my opinion, not defer it, but cancel it all. I mean, if you can write trillion-dollar checks to save banks and airlines, you should be able to do it to save the people. So if we don't learn anything from this virus, or if we do learn anything, I hope that we learn how that as a society we do deserve basic things that they have in other countries, how we do deserve to have a universal healthcare system where you can get treated for any illness, not just coronavirus, but any illness without any financial obstacles. When you look at the city of Detroit, the uninsured population of Detroit is twice as high as the uninsured population for the rest of Michigan. And when this virus gets worse, if we don't shut down the country, which is my personal opinion, what we need to do, shut everything down, we are going to get to a point where the health system is overwhelmed. And then what happens? People who are really sick, the people who are going to the ER because they can't breathe and they feel like they're going to die. We only have so many ventilators. Those are the life support machines for people. And doctors are going to have to be faced with decisions of who gets those ventilators. And committees are making up rules about this right now. But at the end of the day, ultimately, I feel like the people who get the ventilators are not going to be the people in Detroit who are uninsured. It's going to boil down to who has the best health insurance. Because when you think about it, our whole health industry is based on prioritizing people's lives based on their health insurance coverage. If you have no health insurance coverage in this country, your life really isn't worthy. We have wealth care, not health care. If you have Medicaid, which is for people who are low income, your life is worthy, but it comes with all those restrictions. Not everybody accepts Medicaid. If you have an HMO, we say, oh, your life is worthy, but you have to get referrals. So it's all these restrictions to how worthy your life is. And if you have a PPO, which is a type of health insurance that says you can go see whoever you want without referrals, it's like, yeah, your life is worthy, but your life is only worthy if you have enough money to pay the copay, the deductible, the co-insurance. So this is the type of system that we have set up. So we are gonna have to make decisions of who gets ventilators. We're gonna have to if we don't, socially stay at home and pretty much shut down the whole country. But if we had a system where everyone had an insurance and everyone had the same insurance just because they're a human being, then I could at least rest assured that we're not going to be making decisions based on who gets care based off their health insurance, because everyone is going to have the same health insurance.
Let's talk about some of these movie sets with the cast. We're seeing even celebrity stars both in television, both in films. Idris Elba, diagnosed or testing positive for the coronavirus, and then Do you think that there is a direct connection when we're starting to see the stars themselves who are being diagnosed or testing positive, that now starts to have a real trickle-down effect on fans? Like, okay, this is something we should start to take serious. I mean, what did you think when the news came out about Ultra's album?
Oh yeah, well, I've met him, talked with him many times, over the years. He's a great guy, and I almost say this in a way where a lot of women I know, every woman I know, loves Idris Elba. And when that news came out, they were calling me going, "Greg, no!" And it's like, I didn't give it to him, but he's going to be okay, because he obviously was tested, found positive. And once, it's like with anything, once they find a positive and he's a young enough man, they'll be able to take care of it. But, him, and you think about Tom Hanks, come on, that's America's, Mr. America, the actor, that way. And if it can happen to them, right, it can happen to any of us. But yeah, as you know, movie sets are filled with people, from the director of photography, to the grips, to the runners, to this and that. You've got a bunch of people out there. And yeah, now people are a little bit afraid of, getting these big groups together. Because perfect example, when I go out to LA to do like a movie junket, I'm sitting in a hotel room with the celebrity, and you've got the camera crew, recording everything. And I'm sitting about 6 feet away, from the person. Well, now all that's been shut down. And so there are also things called satellite interviews, which, kind of like with what we're doing right now. Yeah. And I was scheduled to do 3 of them about a week ago, but now even the celebrities don't want to leave their house to go to a studio or to a hotel, to even do the satellite interviews. So it's a scary situation where, hopefully everything will, be taken care of, and everything will get back to as best to normal as we can expect.